Volkanovski. We don't know how Volk's going to look at 155 pounds. I think it stands to reason that he's going to be better than he was at 45. I don't think he's going to lose much in terms of the speed. I think what's going to be most interesting for me is those first grappling sequences and those transitions. How does the physicality and the nuanced game of Islam Makhachev affect Volkanovski, and how does he hold up?
Guys, there's a world in which Alexander would stay number one pound for pound and nobody would complain, because he showed last night his fighting style translates weight classes.
But before we talk about the obvious one, the UFC 284 main event, let's roll back the clock to the fight that put Alexander Volkanovski's name on the map. Volk would take the scalps of 3 featherweight legends by the time he eventually touched UFC gold, the first of which was the great Chad Mendes. Mendes, who is known for his powerful wrestling and immense knockout power, was favored by the oddsmakers to regain his footing in the divisional top 10. Chad himself seemed to think that this rising talent should have thought twice before calling him out.
He's a up-and-comer. He's trying to make a name. It's not going to happen, man. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show these young guys it's a bad idea to call me out.
Make it come.
You know, I'm going to go out there and put it all on the line like I do every time, and you're not going to want to miss it.
Well, as it turned out, the future champion Volkanovski was headed straight for the pinnacle of the 145-pound weight class. And after engaging in a brawl with Mendes, he eventually weathered the storm to find the TKO victory. Mendes fell into a period of radio silence shortly after, before retiring from the MMA completely. He did make his return to combat sports as a bare-knuckle boxer, but his matchup with Alexander the Great proved to be his last as a mixed martial artist.
I'm not coming back to MMA, man. I know that I've been seeing a lot of people's comment and they're kind of hoping that I am. I'm coming back to boxing, man. I want to try something different.
It might be a pure coincidence, but like Mendes before him, it's interesting to note that José Aldo ended his time as a UFC featherweight after fighting Alexander Volkanovski. Sure, he continued his career down at bantamweight, but there was certainly something to the way that Volk completely shut him down that must have really stung. Pre-fight, Aldo seemed certain of 2 things. One, that he was set to get another title shot with a victory over Alexander Volkanovski, and 2, that his retirement from the sport was incoming. But as it turned out, Aldo, like the rest of us, had no idea what he was in for, and that he just so happened to be standing across from one of the greatest fighters of his era. There was an air of confidence about José right up to fight night, and the fans fully expected him to get the job done. Unfortunately, that's not how it played out. Not at all. And by the time Volkanovski was done fainting and outworking his way to a unanimous decision win, we knew we had a new featherweight contender. Aldo's statement post-fight sounded like a man who was truly bamboozled by what he just saw, as he called it the worst performance of his career. No man has more history with Alexander Volkanovski than Max Holloway. But at the time of the first loss of his title, Blessed was left as shocked as the rest of us. It's not that Volk didn't show up in a big way, but the manner in which he shut Holloway down from start to finish was eerily similar to what he did to José Aldo. Max didn't dispute the decision outright, but was convinced that he had landed the bigger shots.
He's just used to it.
Yeah, it is what it is, you know. Yeah. I got to watch the fight a little bit over, you know, and talking about the fight, a lot of people, actually about the press conference, when I said I thought I won, I think so people is taking it the wrong way. A lot of his fans take it the wrong way. It's like, when I was in there, in my mind, I thought I won because when you think about it, I thought I was landing more damaging shots to the head and body, you know. I know the leg kicks he was landing here and there, but I didn't think it was too much until after I saw.
This once again happened when he and Volk rematched. Except this time, to the outside observer, it seemed as though Max had a far more compelling case. He even dropped Volk twice in the opening 2 rounds. But instead of complaining, He merely voiced his belief that a judge's perspective is always going to differ to that of a fighter's. Max was always going to work his way back into the cage with Volkanovski. And sure enough, stunning wins over Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez had the world convinced that this version of Blessed was in fact the best on the planet. But by the time their final 5 rounds was through, Holloway must have known the truth.
I sat with my team and we watched it together and we just broke down, you know. It was 2 different guys, you know, and you saw 2 guys in there grow from the first fight, and then you saw 2 guys in there grow during the fight, you know, which is pretty good. You know, when you're at this level, you're at this high level, that's what you gotta do to separate yourself from the pack.
Volkanovski had simply outgrown him, and with his head hung in defeat, Max left the cage in the middle of Volk's post-fight speech, battered, beaten, and now 0-3 against the reigning champion. While Max was off earning crucial wins over Kattar and Rodriguez, Brian T-City Ortega was given his second shot at UFC Gold, and though things were initially cordial between these two, a season of The Ultimate Fighter spent coaching opposite one another led to some pretty bad blood.
No one around. I still say, come get at me. You got an issue, let's get, we fight, shake hands, or fight and hit each other. I don't give a f. But if you got an issue, get at me. Where I come from, if you got an issue with me, we fight, we square up, and we do what we do.
And by the time fight week came around, these two were ready to kick off.
No more words tomorrow. Fuck the belt, I'm coming for your head.
The fight itself sprung up perhaps the closest unsuccessful submission attempt in a title fight since Vitor Belfort's armbar on John Jones. Needless to say, even months later, Brian Ortega cannot believe that Volk didn't tap. And finally, the most recent opponent of Alexander Volkanovski may have just helped him serve up his greatest performance to date. And even though it was a performance that came in defeat, Alexander the Great proved his merits as one of this era's finest. But pre-fight, Islam Makhachev was not convinced by Volkanovski's ability to hang in there with him.
I didn't see, brother. I watched his maybe 5-6 fight. I don't see his West.
He promised an all-out MMA assault, one that wouldn't just come at him in the form of his famous Dagestani wrestling.
It's not same. He brings some guys from the jiu-jitsu, but this is not same, you know. This is not gonna be jiu-jitsu. This is gonna be MMA pressure to the ground. He feel like Greg Johnson cannot control him in the ground, but this is a different.
And as it turned out, he wasn't lying. These two engaged in a title fight for the ages, a back and forth with some of the highest levels of technical skills you'll ever see inside an octagon. Post-fight, even Islam was forced to admit that Volk was a lot better than he thought. But in saying that, he was glad that he was able to show off his full MMA skill set.
Honestly, I don't have planned before the fight wrestle all 5 rounds because I know he's short. I have reach longer than him. That's why I planning to try to. And I told all media I'm gonna try to knock him out. I landed many good punch, good knees, but this guy's so strong.
Volk's best moment came in the 5th round, but according to the champ, it wasn't the devastating near finish that some believed it to be. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to click the bell to be notified of future videos. If you want to be featured next time around, leave a comment down below. And be sure to check out some of our other videos.